we are going to learn about what is database management system. DBMS is a software which is used to maintain and manage the database. DBMS is a software which is used to maintain and manage the database. Okay, DBMS provides two important features. The two important features are security and authorization. The two important features are security and authorization. In DBMS, data are stored in the form of files. These are the main points. In DBMS, this data are stored in the form of files. Query language is used to communicate with the DBMS. Whatever the data or information we have to collect from the DBMS, it can be done only through the query language. Okay, next we are going to learn about types of DBMS. The first type of DBMS is called as network DBMS, that is NDBMS. Next, object oriented DBMS, that is OODBMS. Next, hierarchical DBMS, that is HDBMS. Then relational DBMS, that is RDBMS. The four types of DBMS are network DBMS, object-oriented DBMS, hierarchical DBMS, and relational DBMS. Now we will see some of the RDBMS softwares. Relational DBMS softwares. For example, MySQL, Oracle SQL, Postage SQL, MS SQL, Microsoft SQL, Amazon SQL, then SQLite, Mary SQL. These are the RDBMS softwares. These are RDBMS softwares uses SQL language. So with the help of SQL language, we can access these SQL softwares to retrieve the data. Next, non-RDBMS softwares. What are the non-RDBMS softwares? MongoDB, Cassandra, Neo4j, Amazon DynamoDB, and CouchDB. These are the non-RDBMS softwares which uses Python and JavaScript JS to access the data. Simply it will be known as NoSQL. That is, NoSQL means not only SQL, using a Python and a JavaScript we can retrieve the data in these RDBMS softwares. Next, we are going to learn about the history of SQL. The SQL was founded by E.F.Codd. Edgar Franklin Codd is the name of the man who founded SQL. Till 1970s, all the companies were using DBMS software. Then E.F.Codd is a scientist who invented the model called relational model. In this relational model, data will be stored in the form of tables. In DBMS software, the data will be stored in the form of files. But in the relational model invented by E.F.Codd, the data will be stored in the form of tables. Then IBM was the company which invented RDBMS by integrating relational model with the DBMS. We can say relational model plus DBMS is known as RDBMS. Name this RDBMS as SQL. SEQUEL. The full form of SQL is Structured English Query Language, is known as SQL, which is used to communicate with RDBMS. Later, this SQL is known as SQL, Structured Query Language. Now we will learn about the relational model. Relational model was invented in 1970 by E.F.Codd. E.F.Codd was a computer scientist. E.F.Codd, a computer scientist, invented the relational model. In this relational model, All data are stored in the form of tables. Then any DBMS software which follows relational model will become RDBMS. Any DBMS which follows the relational model will become RDBMS, that is DBMS plus relational model equal to RDBMS. DBMS plus relational model. The DBMS software which follows the relational model will become a RDBMS. Now we are going to learn about relational database management. RDBMS is a type of DBMS software which is also used to maintain and manage the database. Database management system or software which is used to maintain and manage the database provides two important features. They are same security and authorization. It is also a type of DBMS software which is used to maintain and manage the database. It provides two features, that is security and authorization. In RDBMS, data are stored in the form of table. Then which language is used to communicate with this RDBMS server? SQL language is used to communicate with RDBMS. In database management system, we saw query language. Query language is used to communicate with DBMS. Here SQL language. SQL language is used to communicate with RDBMS. Let's see the difference between DBMS and RDBMS. DBMS, RDBMS. Okay. In DBMS, data are stored in the form of files. In RDBMS, the data are stored in the form of tables. Query language used for communication. In RDBMS, SQL is used for communication. Okay, these are the difference between DBMS and RDBMS. Next, rules of E.F.Codd. There are certain rules derived by E.F.Codd about the data which are to be stored in the RDBMS software. The first rule is all the data entered into the cell must be single value to avoid the data loss. All the data which are entered in the cell, we are storing the data in the form of tables. So the tables will contain cells. The data entered into the cell should be single value. Why single value? To avoid the data losses. This rule is called as atomic rule. Atomic rule of E.F.Codd is the data entered into the each cell will be single value. The second rule is in RDBMS, all the data should be stored in the form of tables, including metadata. The data should be stored in the form of tables, including metadata. This rule is called as metadata rule. We know what is data. Raw fact of entity of an raw fact of attributes of an entity. What is meant by metadata? Metadata is nothing but the details of the data is known as metadata, or the raw fact which describes the attributes of data is known as metadata. These metadata are stored in the form of meta table. The data are stored in the form of table. The metadata are stored in the form of table, and these metadata are auto-generated. Metadata is nothing but the details of the data. For example, we have a 5 5 by 5 table. In the first column, I'm storing the student ID. In the next column, I'm storing name of the students. In this column, I'm storing age, name, age. In this column, I'm storing gender. In this column, I'm storing the photos of the students. Let's take student ID as 112, name Surya, age 21, gender male, and the photo, that is surya.image. Assume here I am storing a photo. Okay, inserting photo. Assume a photo is stored. Then the next student ID 113, name is Vijay, age 32, gender male. Here also I am storing whose photo? Vijay's photo. Okay. Now the student ID. Then Ramya, name of the student Ramya, age 25, gender female. Here I am storing Ramya's photo. These are the data. Data are stored in the form of tables. Okay. Metadata are stored in the form of metatables. Now what is mean by metadata means the information of this image, the data of this image, the properties of this image is the metadata. For example, I am creating a table. It is called meta table. Here I am storing name, then size of the image, then format of the image and resolution of the image. What is the name of this image? Ramya dot image or Ramya dot JPG. Size of the images is 200 KB. Okay, size of the image 200 KB. Then what format the image is stored? The image is stored in the JPG format. Then what is the resolution of this image? Resolution 156 into 300 pixels. It is the resolution of this image. The details of this data is known as metadata. The table which is having the metadata is known as meta table. Then the data of this image is known as metadata. It also having a meta table which having the name, size, format, resolution of that particular image. Whose image? Vijay's image. Third rule says that the data can be stored in multiple tables. If required, we can establish a connection between those tables with the help of key attributes. This rule is known as key attribute rule. Yeah, we can store data in the multiple tables. The data is required from the multiple tables. We can connect those tables by using the key attribute. This rule is known as key attribute rule. Okay, we will learn about this key attribute. What are the key attributes in the further videos. Then the fourth rule is all the data entered into the table must be validated. The data which is entered into the table must be validated. How these data are validated? These data are validated by two validation methods. The two validation methods are by assigning data types and by assigning constraints. These are the two validation methods by which we can validate the data. The four rules of E.F.Codd are atomic rule, metadata rule, key attribute rule, and validation rule. All this called as validation rule. These are the four rules of E.F.Codd. The atomic rule says all the data entered into the cell will be single value. The metadata rule says the data should be entered in the form of tables including metadata. Metadata is nothing but details of the data. For example, if we are storing image of a particular student, means the properties of that image, name of the image, size, these are the properties of the image. The properties of that data is known as metadata, and it is auto generated. Meta table is auto generated. Then third one is key attribute rule. We can store the data in multiple tables. If we need, if required, we can establish a connection between the two tables by using key attributes. Then fourth one is validation rule. The validation rule says that the data entered into the table should be validated. And how these data are validated? By using two validation methods. They are by assigning the data types. We will learn about the data types and constraints in the further videos. By assigning data types and by assigning constraints, we are validating these data. Okay. In the next video, we are explaining about the data types and the constraints. Okay, let's see in the next video.